Hi, this is Razak, financial contributor to YWO, and we're looking at the week ahead for February 9th to February 13th of 2026. So first, looking at the major economic events of the week. So we start out the week on Tuesday, February 10th. From the United States, we have the monthly retail sales number coming out. Now that's followed on Wednesday. From the United States, an NFP, non-farm payroll number coming out. Now, this specifically is a very unique scenario because usually NFP comes out at the first Friday of every month. However, due to government shutdown in the United States, it has been delayed by 5 days. So it's coming out at the middle of the week. So it should add some volatility to the market. Now on Thursday, February 12th from Great Britain, we have a gross domestic product number come out. That's GDP. And lastly, on February 13th, that's Friday, from the United States, we have Consumer Price Index. That's a CPI. That's an inflation report, super important as well. Now, looking at the market, starting with the Forex symbols, the US dollar was mixed last week. And the question is which way it's going to go following this week. Now, a very important factor is when the US markets sell off, the dollar goes higher. When the US markets go higher, the dollar gets weaker. However, that was mixed last week because versus the euro and the GBP, the dollar got stronger. However, versus the Japanese yen, it did get weaker. So this little inference kind of is not completely so. So with that said, that's the big question this week. How's the dollar going to react? Now, everybody has to follow everything else, and that's specifically the international market. Specifically speaking, the Dow Jones and the Nikkei. Now, the Dow Jones finished the week at record highs, above 50,000 points for the Dow Jones for the first time, doubling over a 5-year period, which is unprecedented. Usually it just continues by going higher 10% every year, but it doubled. I'm not sure if that's so healthy for the US markets, but that's the case, and that's the scenario that we're in. Does it look like it's going to be a bubble that's going to burst? Yeah, historically, yes. When is it going to burst? Not yet. Okay, so keep an eye on this as it's still unfolding, because every time you call a high or every time you call a top or a bottom, surely enough it goes higher or it goes further bottom. You got to wait for that confirmation. Now, what's leading us higher? The Nikkei. Nikkei making all-time record highs, and then the Dow following suit right afterwards. So keep an eye on the Nikkei. Now, looking at the stocks last week, big tech wasn't resilient. It didn't break out to new record highs. It was really the retail stocks, actually, specifically Walmart making new highs as that continued the week and ended the week on all-time highs as well. So that's something to look at. Now, looking at some of the other sectors, yeah, the bank stocks were strong, but nothing really to scream out and shout out. So we'll see if there's going to be a rotation this week with some of the stocks. Now, looking at commodities, some big question marks remain. Namely, let's start out with oil, because oil looks like it's going to be in a wedge formation and it looks like it's going to break out in either direction. So keep an eye on it. That's really a very important commodity to have, specifically under the geopolitical climate that we find ourselves. Now, moving on, we have precious metals that made a bounce last week. The question is whether or not they're going to continue. In either direction that they go, there will be volatility. So that's what I'm going to look at to see if gold continue and silver continues to, trade erratically. And even if it doesn't have specific direction, it's going to give us that volatility. So if you want to day trade it and, scalp it throughout the day, that's an opportunity. And lastly, cryptocurrencies, very similar to some of the commodities, specifically like precious metal, as we had that massive sell-off and then a bounce, and now we continue to remain in this uncertainty of whether or not we hit a bottom, at least for now, and then we're going to bounce off of it and see if we're going to test that low again. That's going to be something I'm going to look for either Bitcoin, XRP, or Solana. Now, looking at the geopolitical economic environment that we're in, we left off the week last week with a little bit of uncertainty between the US and Iran, discussing their nuclear ambitions and all that. And that remains to be a big question mark because it's going to follow up on Wednesday with a meeting there. And that's surely going to put some pressure specifically on oil and natural gas, as Iran is one of the largest contributors in that realm. So that's going to be kind of interesting how that's going to unfold. So with the geopolitical climate that we're in and some of the economic data that's coming out this week, I'm sure it's going to be a volatile week. So do expect it. This is Razak for YWO. We'll see you here next week.